To finish up on the pulmonary circuit, notice that the oxygen poor blood, color-coded here in blue, leaves one side of the heart, goes to the lungs. Carbon dioxide is dropped off into the air sacs in the lungs so that you breathe it out. Oxygen is picked up by the blood supply, the capillaries, that's what this meshwork is. And then oxygen-rich blood enters into the other side of the heart. The heart is separated into two parts, or two halves, the right side and the left side. Okay? So that's why it's that double circulation system. And then the oxygen-rich blood that comes back from the lungs enters into the other side of the heart, and then that oxygen-rich blood will then be pumped into the systemic circulation, or the systemic circuit. So now again, that oxygen-rich blood, where's my cursor? Here we go, enters into the left side of the heart. Now, as you're looking at this, this is like on your right side, but notice that the person, you're looking at the front of the person, so this is the person's left side of their heart. Not that you need to remember that, but that's what we're looking at here. The left side of the heart has oxygen-rich blood that has been delivered to the heart by the pulmonary circuit. Now in the systemic circuit, that oxygen-rich blood is delivered into the blood vessels and into the capillaries throughout the body to drop off oxygen, which leaves the capillaries via diffusion into the interstitial fluid, picked up by the cells, tissues, organs. The cells are producing waste gas, carbon dioxide, that diffuses the opposite way from the cells, interstitial fluid, into the capillary beds. And now the blood leaving the capillary beds is oxygen poor but carbon dioxide rich. And then that blood returns to the heart on the other side, the right side of the heart, where when the heart pumps again, it will enter into then the pulmonary circuit. And by the way, these circuits are operating at the same time. When your heart pumps, as we'll see, both sides of the heart eject blood either into the systemic circuit or into the pulmonary circuit, and then blood returns to the heart to repeat the cycle again. So this path of blood, the human heart is a four-chambered organ. The two superior chambers are blood receiving chambers. They are the atria. Atrium is singular. Then the blood leaves the atria and drops down into the inferior, meaning below, ventricles. Notice the ventricles are bigger and more heavily walled or more muscular. When the ventricles contract, they send blood either into the pulmonary circuit. The blood here is color-coded blue, meaning oxygen poor. Or the blood is pumped into the systemic circuit. Okay, color-coded red to indicate oxygen-rich. So the blood is received into the atria, singular is atrium, and then blood is always pumped out or ejected away from the heart from or by contraction of the ventricles. Again, either into the pulmonary circuit or into the systemic circuit. And as we'll see, the contraction of the atria and then the ventricles is coordinated so that the heart works as a very efficient muscular pump to propel blood through the heart and then eject blood out of the heart. So the pulmonary and systemic circuits operate simultaneously. As the heart contracts, first the atria, then the ventricles, blood is ejected and pushed and moved through the pulmonary circuit at the same time as blood is ejected and pushed through the systemic circuit. So a little video here on the action of the heart and the associated circuits, pulmonary and systemic.
In mammals, Blood pumped by the right side of the heart passes through the lungs and enters the left side of the heart. This is the pulmonary circuit. Blood pumped by the left side of the heart is distributed to the other body organs and returns to the right side of the heart. This is the systemic circuit. This pattern, called double circulation, ensures vigorous blood flow to the organs because the heart pumps the blood a second time after it returns from the lungs.
Okay, so we talked kind of quickly there, but what I had just talked about, and rewatch this as needed. Double circulation, okay, because the blood moves through one side of the heart, then enters into the pulmonary circuit, then the blood returns to the other side of the heart, left side of the heart, and then enters into the systemic circuit. And then back and forth and back and forth, ensuring continuous supply of oxygen-rich blood to the system. Here's another figure that shows the operation of the heart and the cardiovascular system, meaning the heart and the blood vessels in the blood. So we'll start at number 1. Oxygen poor blood, color-coded in blue, is coming back from the systemic circulation, bringing carbon dioxide, rich blood, and oxygen poor blood into the right side of the heart, first into the right atrium. The blood then drops into the right ventricle. When the heart contracts, when the ventricles contract, blood is ejected and goes into, notice number 3 is going to the lungs. The blood has entered into the pulmonary circuit. The blood, which is oxygen poor, carbon dioxide rich, goes into the capillaries in the lungs at number 4. Gas exchange occurs. Carbon dioxide is moved into the air sacs by diffusion. Oxygen moves in the opposite way, also by diffusion. Then when you breathe out, carbon dioxide is expelled. When you breathe in, oxygen comes in. Now leaving the lungs, number 5, oxygen-rich blood or carbon dioxide poor blood. The oxygenated blood then enters into the other side of the heart, which is number 6 here, the left atrium. The blood drops into the left ventricle, number 7. The ventricles contract. The blood is ejected to go into number 8, the systemic circulation, where the blood goes from arteries to arterioles, smaller blood vessels, smaller arteries. The blood percolates through capillary beds throughout the entire body. Here they're only showing like a couple, but the capillary beds are throughout the entire body. There, the oxygen is dropped off, leaving the capillaries via diffusion. Carbon dioxide diffuses in the opposite way, going into the capillaries. And then leaving the systemic capillaries is oxygen poor blood or carbon dioxide rich blood through the larger, eventually all of the venules merge into veins, and all the veins merge into the 2 largest veins called the superior vena cava, number 10, and number 11, the inferior vena cava. Then finally, that oxygen poor blood enters into the right atrium, back to number 1, and back and forth. The thing to recognize is that the 2 atria fill at the same time, and then when they contract, they fill their ventricles at the same time, and the ventricles contract at the same time, ejecting blood into the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit at the same time. Okay, so it's almost like 2 pumps stuck together, the heart and its 4 chambers, but the atria and the ventricles are pumping, contracting at the same time, ejecting blood into the respective circuits at the same time, and it's all nice coordinated functioning system, cardiovascular system. So this amazing thing, your heart, it's a muscular organ made up mostly of cardiac muscle. It's about the size of your fist. There you go, Muhammad. About the size of your fist. and it's just underneath your sternum or your breastbone. Slightly off center. Part of your heart is directly midline, and the other part of it is off to the left. Okay, it's not straight in the middle. It's a little bit to the left. It has its 4 chambers, and it's a double circulation organ. And one benefit of that is it prevents mixing of oxygen-rich blood and oxygen-poor blood. So it's a nice, efficient pumping organ, the heart, connected to its 2 circulations to really help ensure ample delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the cells and tissues and organs of our bodies. So let's talk about the cardiac cycle. So this is a sequence of events where the heart contracts and relaxes, or relaxes and contracts rhythmically, and that's referred to as the cardiac cycle, like one whole heartbeat, which is relatively rapid. So one heartbeat is the complete circuit of the cardiac cycle. And it takes just under a second when you're sitting there at rest. If you get excited or if you start running, your heart rate will go up. And we'll talk about how and why. So at rest, the heart rate, meaning the number of heartbeats per minute, is about 60 to 100, depending on our age, our gender, our health, those sorts of things. So the heart rate is measured by taking the pulse, and the pulse occurs because as blood is ejected forcefully out of the ventricles, in particular the left ventricle, and that blood goes into the arteries, first the aorta and then all the other arteries. Those arteries are actually distended. They stretch a little bit to accommodate the forceful ejection and entry of blood into them. So that stretching and then recoil of these arteries you can feel as a pulse, like your cardiac pulse in your neck. Each pulse that you feel represents, where's my cursor? Represents one heartbeat. Excuse me, one heartbeat, okay, each pulse. So the cardiac cycle, we can talk about diastole, which is the relaxation phase of the heart cycle, when temporarily none of the chambers are contracting, and then systole, which is the contraction phase. So in this little video here, little GIF, we see that the superior chambers, the receiving atria, contract. Then there's a slight pause, and then the lower chambers, the ventricles, contract. So we have atrial diastole relaxation and atrial systole, which is the contraction of the atria. The one we can feel with the pulse, because they're stronger, is the ventricular systole, the contraction of the ventricles. So after ventricular systole occurs, they go into relaxation, which means ventricular diastole. Okay? So each heartbeat is a coordinated sequence of the atria being in diastole, meaning relaxation, and then the atria contract. Atrial systole, that fills completely the ventricles. While they're filling, they're relaxing. So there's ventricular diastole, and then followed by ventricular systole, which means contraction of the ventricles. So it happens pretty quick. One heartbeat at rest takes just under 1 second. So the beating makes a heart sound, like a lub-dub type of sound. And that's because there are valves within the heart that prevent backflow of blood and ensure blood goes in one direction, into the atria, into the ventricles, and then out of the ventricles with no or minimal backflow.